Hello, and welcome back to our Wellbeing at Work podcast series. My name is Bianca Bowie, and I am the Ambassador Program Manager here at Workplace Options. With me today is Ashley Owens, the Global Mental Health and Safety Lead for KBR. Ashley thrives in the space between digital data strategy and human connections. With years of experience in human behavior, hospitality, and information systems, she believes that in all realms, one thing is absolute: people matter. She carries expertise with her time supporting Hilton Hotels and Resorts, REI, NASA Johnson Space Center, and now KBR. KBR has many investments in building a psychologically healthy workplace that demonstrates a culture of care. To that end, Workplace Options was called in to establish the Wellbeing Ambassador Program within their organization and training well-being ambassadors across the globe to promote and support the well-being of individuals in all of KBR's locations. And I'm excited to be speaking with Ashley about this. Thanks for joining us, Ashley.
Thank you for having me. Super excited to have this conversation.
Great. So let's get started. So first question for you, Ashley. How was the need of a well-being ambassador program identified within the organization?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I know one that a lot of businesses have struggled with over the last few years, especially post-pandemic, and some are still kind of asking themselves, is this the right fit? Is this something we want to offer at our organizations? And for KBR, it really came down to two things that we knew to be true. The first one is that mental health is just growing in the cultural spotlight, right? Ever since the pandemic, we've just seen this explosion of people talking about it, which is awesome. That's what we always wanted, right? Those of us who work in the mental health realm, we wanted that to happen. We hate that it took a pandemic to do it, but here we are, and now it's front of mind. So we know that that's happening. And the second key part was we knew these conversations were already happening. People were talking to their colleagues. They were asking their opinion, sharing their personal life stories and examples, and going to managers and HR reps for assistance, to human resources to ask them for help. And so from a health and safety perspective, we really wanted to ask ourselves, how can we mitigate risk? Knowing that these conversations are occurring, what can we put in place to make those safer? And so something like the Wellbeing Ambassador Program, where we can provide people basic training on how to have these conversations, how to emotionally support their colleagues, and quick access to what resources they can refer people to, just makes that space safer. And so that's why we made the call to build the program.
Thank you. Thank you for that. So exactly what has been the leadership team's role in supporting the program across the organization in the different countries?
Yeah, that's a great question, because being a global company, we're in 40 different companies, tens of thousands of employees. And so there's a wide range of culture, levels of different stigma, religious beliefs, political beliefs surrounding mental health, healthcare, and what should be accessible at work and what should be something at home. And of course, we want to respect and be aware of that across our employee population. But the key there is exactly what you just asked. We had to have leadership buy-in. We had to have leadership model and talk about this program for it to be successful. And so the first point that we really made was that the Wellbeing Ambassador Program would be volunteer. We didn't want leaders nominating people or, for lack of a better word, forcing employees to become this type of person. We wanted them to believe in the quality of it and then ask their employees who would want to be a part of the Wellbeing Ambassador Program. So we had a bunch of managers take the training. And what's awesome is that then gave us two benefits. The first was we now had a group of trained managers who could act as ambassadors for each other. We do know that often when an employee wants to reach out to a well-being ambassador about an issue they're experiencing, sometimes they don't want it to be a manager or a leader, right? Because part of that stigma is they're worried it might affect their role at work. But what does that leave a manager who wants to talk to a well-being ambassador? So we had that benefit of training a group of them to be there for each other. And then in the training, they were able to see the value. They were able to see why this would be beneficial to be available on their team. So that was a big part. Once we had some trained leaders and we had them exposed to the program, their role really became visibility. So at KBR, for example, and I know this is not unique to many businesses across the globe, we have what we call toolbox talks, but we call them zero harm moments. And that was one of the first ways we asked leadership to begin promoting visibility of the program. So when an entire leader of a business unit or an entire country segment of our business takes their 5 minutes focus in front of thousands of employees to talk about this program, that says everything it needs to say right there. Tells you how important that leader views it, that they're going to spend our valuable time talking about it. So that's one example. But in summary, visibility. That's what we need the leaders to do. Just talk about it.
Great. Thank you for that, Ashley. Now, I'm curious, how has workplace culture changed since the program was first launched with KBR?
Yeah, we have a number of years under our belt now with the Wellbeing Ambassador Program, so I can answer this question with full confidence and tell you that the culture is shifting. We have both actual concrete data to prove that. So we do record ambassador interactions within our program. That was a choice we made. Now we send out a monthly form to our Wellbeing ambassadors, and we ask them to record how many interactions they've had and what trends they're seeing. So we don't record any personal information, of course, and we don't break it down by location. We don't want to identify anyone. However, it does allow us to get a pulse of who's talking to who, how many people are reaching out, and are people noticing any specific trends like financial stress or difficulty sleeping, things of that nature. And so what we've gotten to watch over the number of years is the interactions go up, first of all, which is good. I know health and safety minded folks might say, wait. If it's a, mental health first aid, well-being ambassador role, we wouldn't want the numbers to be high, right? And what I would say to you is that's incorrect. Mental health is similar to physical health in some ways, but not in the way you're thinking when it comes to physical first aid. Talking to a colleague is not the same as recording an injury. Talking to a colleague is preventing an injury. So we really love seeing those interactions go up, seeing more usage in the program. And we can almost mirror that change and that shift with other cultural changes we've noticed throughout the organization. So we've had new types of employee resource groups crop up in response to some of the topics that we noticed trending within our Wellbeing Ambassador conversations. We've noticed different managers taking on certain topics or requiring training in certain mental health areas for their field based on the trends and data that we find. And so slowly over time, the Wellbeing Ambassador Program has really entered the vernacular of KBR. Leaders talk about it. Leaders use it as zero harm moments. At the town halls, our CEO will reference it. And just slowly over these years, the more that it grows, the more that we promote it, it's really just become a key company offering.
That's really interesting, Ashley. Thank you for bringing all of that up. So what would you say is the benefit of having the Employee Assistance Program and the peer sessions part of the program for KBR?
Yeah, two different points there. The first one, of course, having the Employee Assistance Program in conjunction with something like the Wellbeing Ambassador Program is absolutely key. Because what the Wellbeing Ambassador Program does is it teaches and arms your employees to be able to speak to each other. But it certainly does not qualify them to be a mental health professional. We still need those desperately in 2025. So having access to the Employee Assistance Program so easily is an absolutely foundational step to our program. Almost 90% of our Wellbeing Ambassador interactions end with a recommendation to the EAP. So that tells you right there what the majority of the conversations are about and where they head. So having that close relationship between the Employee Assistance Program and Ambassador Program is honestly why the program works at all. And then you mentioned the peer support sessions. So these are phenomenal, and I think they're really the reason we have longevity with our ambassadors. So those peer support sessions where we have a mental health professional from the EAP come and host a session once a month, it's voluntary. We offer that for our Wellbeing ambassadors to attend, and it's a mix where we talk about maybe a different skill that month to add to their tool belt. We open the floor for ambassadors to share experiences they've had or to ask questions of that mental health professional. And the feedback we get of the safety and support that Wellbeing ambassador feels having access to that session is huge. I think for many of us, the training is great and it's very thorough. But after the training, sometimes we still feel a little like, can I talk to someone who's in distress? Can I really help and assist someone who's experiencing trauma? And having that monthly check-in and knowing that mental health professional is really just a reach out away makes you feel like, yes, I can.
Great. That's awesome. And just to wrap things up with my last question, How do you see the Wellbeing Ambassador Program evolving to meet the changing landscape of workplaces overall?
Yeah, I think the two key changes that I see really to the Wellbeing Ambassador Program as we move forward. The first one, which has certainly been addressed, but I know within our organization, we've been tackling a lot more lately, is thinking about what is the difference between noticing signs and symptoms or supporting our colleagues when we are virtual versus when we're in person. Now, obviously, we've had years of practice of having virtual meetings and working hybrid or remote. And in our training, we usually do our trainings virtually or remote. And so it's not that we don't necessarily know how to have these conversations, but it is kind of a new landscape of when we're learning about mental health signs and symptoms, or even how to approach them or bring them up or confront or address someone. There's a little bit of a different skill set when it's virtual, and especially if you're in a scenario where there can't be cameras and you're just having audio. So I think that that's a landscape that needs to be tackled in even more detail. But on a bigger scale, our master plan, right, and I think WPO would agree, is that in a perfect world years from now, we won't need a quantified Wellbeing Ambassador Program. We'll just need the training and support that you offer from a Wellbeing Ambassador Program for the whole company. Our plan for world domination, right, is a culture shift. We want everyone eventually to be an ambassador. Having a structured group is key to getting buy-in. But the end goal is that by spreading the training, having these ambassadors model the behavior, hearing feedback about the positive interactions peers have had with ambassadors and the resources they've gotten access to, that we will create a culture where everyone becomes an ambassador. And yes, that sounds glass half full and rose-colored glasses, but I have to tell you that has to be the goal, right?
Yeah. Well, Ashley, this has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for your time. Thank you for giving us your insights on the Wellbeing Ambassador Program there at KBR. It's just been a real pleasure speaking with you. For our audience, to learn more about the Wellbeing Ambassador Program, continue to visit the consulting.workplaceoptions.com website or email us directly at WPO Global Consulting at workplaceoptions.com. Until next time, take care.